They just revealed that something big is brewing in Montreal as Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton did their end of season media availability. They revealed a lot about the future of the Montreal Canadiens, including addressing going and getting a number 2 center, potentially even getting a 100-point style winger, but a big bomb dropped from Jeff Gorton talking about how offer sheets are definitely on the table. We have to dive into what the offseason plans look like for Montreal based on this media availability, but not just that. They spoke on a lot more things. We're going to touch on David Reinbacher and Logan Mailloux in Laval, and a very interesting note on Kirby Dach, and probably a lot more. So you're going to want to stick around for all of that on this episode of Habs Digest. Thank you everyone for being here on this live stream Monday. 80 people in here already, guys. As you know, leave a like on the stream. It's completely free. It helps us out a ton. Jesse, how you feeling after this end of season media availability? I feel like they answered a whole lot of questions today.
I mean, you can't help but feel good. You got Jeff Gorton, he's cracking jokes with the press, keeping things light. Kind of interesting how the playoffs can help kind of change the mood a little bit. For a city that they need a little bit of that taste of the playoffs, but you can tell they still want more. But of course, you know, the boys having fun and, you know, really having a great time. I'm feeling great as well, brother.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's great. Like, I don't know about you guys. I mean, look, if you enjoyed this press conference today, you feel confident in the front office, send some W's in the chat, because I felt like this was as big of a win of a press conference as we're going to get. They didn't go too overboard telling us, oh, we're going to do all these amazing things. They kept it cool, calm, collected. They said what we needed to hear, and I thought they gave great answers to everything. Hello, Frank. Hello, Simone. Hello to all the people in the chat there right now. I want to start, though, Jesse, with some talk about Kirby Dach, because this is one thing that we haven't talked about a whole lot recently, and for good reason. He's been sidelined. He's been extremely unlucky with injuries, and when he was healthy this year, he just couldn't get things going. But I wanted to bring up what Jeff Gorton had to say about him, and he said, look, there's certainly a place for Kirby in our lineup. It's going to be up to him where that's going to be. He has size, he's competitive, he has skill, he's a very talented player. I think a lot is in the balance of how his summer goes, how the rehab is going to go. And Kent Hughes reiterated, look, this is not any kind of last chance for Kirby. Kirby still is an incredible player who has an incredible opportunity with this team. Will he be the 2C? That question wasn't really answered. It's like, maybe, maybe not. But again, Jesse, as much as he really struggled this year, that potential is still there. I feel it. We're only 2 years removed from a 22-year-old Kirby Dach putting up 38 points in 58 games, mostly playing on the top line where his points per game average was even higher. I really like that this is the take that our front office is going with. We're not going to rush into getting him out of town. Give him the chance to properly heal, show his skill. He has the compete to do it, and I love that they're ready to just keep giving him a chance here.
They are. They're giving him that chance, but I love that Jeff Gorton, like, he's not mincing words. Like, he's saying, okay, we got a spot probably somewhere in his lineup, but it's going to be up to him, right? Like, whether that's second line, whether that's fourth line, whether it's getting PP time or none at all, really. Like, I love though he mentioned, it's like, okay, there's probably still a spot, you know, for this next year that he has with contract with the Montreal Canadiens, but he did also say, like, he's like, but he's going to need to have a big camp going forward. And I think that was a huge indicator. It's like, okay, they still want to make some room for him, but that patience, like, he needs not only get going, he needs to get going right off the jump. And Josh, like, you know, such a smart man that Jeff Gorton is. I feel like this is like a subtle message to the team as well, which was kind of a theme of like this whole press conference. Like, be ready for next year for the playoffs. Just because you made it next year, you're not just gonna kind of waltz on in there, you know, all, you know, having none of care in the world. Like, you're really gonna need to get going from the beginning. It's gonna be tough to get in there again. So I think having that attitude right from the onset, sending this message as well, like, Kirby, we believe in you, but you're going to need to start on time, as well as the rest of this unit, which I think is just, you know, an unbelievable message. But, like, of course, like, Josh, we have to say, like, this isn't stopping the 2C hunt. In no way did Jeff Gorton really kind of shut that down and say, like, okay, yeah, no way we're looking for another two. Absolutely. We are still going to go out and look for a 2C, but if Kirby Dach can figure out somewhere in the lineup. I know that sometimes bigger players, he's obviously still young, even though getting a little bit older, they need a little bit more time to kind of, you know, get their game going. But I also can't help think of our boy Primeau, though, Josh. Like, you know, again, this was at the AHL level where he had his reversal, playing with the Montreal Canadiens, got sent down because he wasn't on his A game. He went to the AHL, became the best goalie in the AHL by like a country mile. right? Like we've seen these reversals sometimes with young players. Goalies take a long time to develop, and who else? Notoriously, those bigger forwards as well in the game often take a little bit longer to develop as well. So I'm not saying that this is the case of Primeau. Primeau still has a lot to show at the NHL level. But that being said, like it is still important. They're showing some wisdom here, Josh, in terms of like not giving up on the player completely right now.
And I think that also sends a very good message to the rest of your team and other people who may want to go to Montreal, right? I mean, these were kind of their reclamation projects as well. So maybe like a guy like Newhook, a guy like Dach, maybe they're more incentivized to keep him around and do some good things. Like even Kent Hughes, he was asked about the performance of, I think it was 3 specific players. It was Newhook, Caufield, and Slafkovsky. He had some very good comments for all of them, but specifically Newhook, something that maybe we didn't mention as much as we should. He's like, look, Newhook, his big focus this year was getting better at his 200-foot game, just like Caufield's was last year. And Newhook had some big improvements on that front. And again, these guys are always improving every single day. And I think giving Kirby Dach a chance to really show himself again, I really like this. Again, like you said, he's not shutting down that 2C talk. But one thing I did like is that Jeff Gorton, when asked about what kind of player you want to bring into Montreal, his big thing was like, we want to add some size. We want to add some players that bring that compete level. And Kirby Dach honestly exemplifies a lot of that. When he's going, he's a very competitive player. He can drive the play, and he uses his size fairly well. So, maybe that's just one of those ads that they're talking about. Again, we're not necessarily talking a lock for top 6, but it's a very interesting thing. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on Kirby Dach right now. Do you think Kirby is going to be a top 6 player next year? That's what the big question. Is Kirby going to be a top 6 player next year? Yes or no? I want to hear from you as I'm going to read, some of these chats. Frank Thibault in here once again. Thank you, Frank, for being here. Luke, Go Habs Go says, nice day to all Habs Digest fans. Nice day to all of you. It's a wonderful Monday to talk some Habs. And also, shout out, you see in chat there, Norm Stein, the winner of our big giveaway. Norm has a Lane Hudson t-shirt on the way to him. So congrats again to Norm from Halifax. Give some love to Norm for winning that giveaway. It was awesome, an awesome week. Thank you all for entering, all of you who commented on the videos. It was a completely random process. Norm was the one that won, but it was a great, great thing. So thank you for being here as well, Norm. Ethan Mods, Ethan, welcome in again. Hello, Simone is here again as well. Love to see you here, Simone, and so many other people. Zen Mysterio, the Gamer, so many great things. So Mark actually says, Josh, Jesse, great to think, it'd be great to get McTavish from Anaheim, don't you think? 22 years old, great two-way center. I think we might just be talking about him in just a little bit, Jesse. We got some very interesting things coming up here, talking about some RFAs, so stick around. But I want to focus first right now on a bit of Laval stuff, because Laval is an interesting storyline here today, and they did talk about that. And as Marco D'Amico tweeted here, because I didn't get the exact quote from the press conference, I remember hearing it, I didn't have the exact quote, so this will have to do. Canadiens are hoping the Laval Rock can go on a long playoff run in the AHL, and it's not just Reinbacher and Mailloux. Kent Hughes did say during the presser that, they really want to just evaluate how NHL ready their Laval guys are, and calling someone up from Laval is going to be more about their NHL readiness rather than some kind of salary cap thing. So that's one thing that he said. And he also said they want to evaluate Reinbacher and Mailloux because, look, they could replace Savard. And looking at Laval right now, Jesse, yes, they lost their last game. Primeau went back in net. They lost to the Cleveland Monsters. It was not Primeau's fault, although a lot of people still want Fowler back, which I'd be okay with. But looking at Reinbacher, again, 5 points in 10 games this year. Mailloux with 33 points in 63 games this year. A bit of a downturn in terms of point production, uptick in goal production. When we're looking at these two guys, Jesse, do you have maybe a front runner to which one of these guys is maybe the most NHL ready to replace Savard? I know what I have in my heart, but you got any feelings on that front?
David Reinbacher, I think, has the inside track right now. But maybe Mailloux, it's kind of a situation like you noticed with Newhook and previously with Caufield, where they look to kind of improve their defensive game, take a step back offensively to improve defensively, and really improve in all facets. Like we have seen that time and time again. I do believe in even a Mailloux, right? Where you've seen this guy come to the NHL and have an impact on the game right away. Like any prospect who does that is obviously worth a fair amount of value, because not everybody's going to come be so young and really be a difference maker at the pro level. We know his MO, it's really obviously offense. So it makes sense. He's been kind of working on his defensive game. Is it all the way there yet? No. But I think, David Reinbacher, obviously drafted at number 5 overall, not very long ago at all. Obviously, is the front runner for this reason right now. That being said, it's he has some tough competition, but Josh, I'm just so happy to see Reinbacher playing a consecutive little streak of hockey without something weird happening or a coach getting fired or some sort of weird injury. Just him having a little bit of a run right now. the fact that Laval is positioned to go on a big postseason run is just amazing for David Reinbacher to really just start next year that much more ahead. Like, this is just huge for somebody that really needed to get in some hockey for some time mixed for X, Y, and Z reason. It's really him, right? So this is going to be benefiting him a lot right now. I've really liked what I've seen in this player too. And I really believe that, again, talking about difference maker, like Reinbacher again, like I'm going to give him the insides because I think that this guy, it's almost underrated. Like, I feel like this guy can easily become a fan favorite of Montreal for our fans who are so, kind of quick to see the subtleties of the game. They're going to appreciate a guy like David Reinbacher and all kind of those things that he does, kind of like Guhle, but just like more pronounced. You can just, a little bit more tangibly see those positive effects that he's really having on the game all the time. So, I mean, just amazing that the guys are going for a run and obviously playing some great hockey right now.
Yeah, for sure. And like, again, it's such a big point. I can't overstate how him finally getting a nice run of hockey after multiple injuries, after tumultuous coaching situation in Cloton, for him to just this year focus on recovery, jump back in, get in this big playoff run. He's starting to rehab more. He's skating back-to-back days at times now, which is something that hasn't happened all year. And honestly, yeah, like, look, Logan Mailloux is great. I think he's a good player, and I think he's definitely going to play plenty of time in the NHL in his career, especially if he can shore up his defensive end. But watching David Reinbacher, what surprises me is he's only played 13 games total this year, playoffs and regular season. But as the games go by, every single game, he just looks more and more confident. It's one of those things that we say about the Habs themselves, is that when I see clips of David Reinbacher and I just watch some little clips of Laval, or whenever I get a chance to watch a couple minutes of a game, it's like, I don't know. Again, he still makes some mistakes. He's 20 years old, but the poise overall and the smoothness of his skating, and just like, he doesn't look like a young 20-year-old. He looks a lot more mature than that. And when you have that base, it's a lot easier to evolve those other aspects of your game. We know he has a bit of offensive upside, solid defensive upside, one of those guys that can anchor your point for years to come. So I want to hear, like, we got a lot of people talking about this in the chat. Everyone in chat, actually, I'm going to make this a poll because polls are more fun. And we're going to say, who do you think is in the front of the line, I should say, to get called up next year to replace David Savard? So let's see, who is first in line? Question mark. Reinbacher or Mailloux? Because I think this is going to be very telling. I think I know what the results are going to be, not to sway it, but I want to see what you guys think. Because again, Mailloux does have that NHL time already. He is older, but Reinbacher's the higher draft pick with more defensive upside. So we'll let that run for a minute. Look, while we're on the note of Laval, I didn't really, they didn't really mention too much of the forwards about that, Jesse. But again, Kent's comment of like, we just want to evaluate them on NHL readiness. That's the main factor here. That makes me think of some specific players on a team like Laval, someone like an Owen Beck. And again, we're talking someone like a Cayden Primeau, even someone like a Jacob Fowler. So I feel like that little comment from Kent as well, while it's it's not like a crazy hot take comment. It's like, look, if they're ready to play in the NHL, we'll bring them up. But it does just make me feel like, listen, if someone is ready, they're going to get a shot. And they're not just going to hold them down for some arbitrary reason, which is something I really like. Again, not just for the defensemen, but some of the other guys too.
For sure. And you have to feel like right now with a player like Owen Beck, it really kind of comes to mind what Kent Hughes said at this press conference. Like, we don't want to bring somebody on knowing that we might kind of block their development. And then we know that, a player that maybe thought that this was kind of his position in the NHL, like, he's not going to come as hard to the rink because he's going to know, like, what's the point? Like, they already kind of took my spot. They kind of get depressed. I'm just going to be here in the HL. So they're very cognizant, as like great employers often are, of like their employees and how they're kind of thinking about their jobs and their aspirations of kind of being able to move ahead, right? So obviously that is a huge part in how they're going to approach this summer, is that they want to add talent to this team. We're definitely going to get more into that in a second, but at the same time, they don't want to block those spots, which I think shows like a lot of wisdom, and also like a reason of why the culture is so good on this team, when you can kind of like take into consideration maybe like how your players' thoughts and feelings on these things. It seems kind of like 20 years ago, you never talk like, what do you care about what the players think about what the GM do? And nowadays, it's really everything. You want these players to really enjoy coming to the rink every day. It's not by coincidence that all this great positive culture has happened for the Montreal Canadiens. They're at the forefront of it. I mean, you mentioned young guys as well, like we got guys as well like Fowler, where you really have to feel like, how soon is it before he possibly starts kind of, scratching at the coattails of Dobesh and Montembeault? Because if they're saying that it's going to be more Barrett based and who's ready for the NHL, right? Like we got two guys that definitely look NHL caliber, but I mean, you have to feel like it's not going to be too long before that really starts happening as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it because, again, like Laval has established a winning culture so fast. Now, again, whether Pascal Vincent stays with the team next year, we don't know. We just assume that someone's going to kind of scoop him up in the NHL, but I don't know. His last NHL coaching job didn't work so great. Maybe he's super happy here being in Laval. We don't know, but right now, the Laval situation is absolutely amazing. We also got a chat there from Tom Crouchman saying Trudeau is more ready than Reinbacher. Look, William Trudeau is another sneaky guy. Like, and I think, again, if he's ready, he's ready. We'll see in training camp, but he's a guy that has impressed me, I do have to say. He's also very young. I think he's like 22 or 21 or 22, and I feel like we treat him like he's 28. So, just another one of those things. But I got to shout out Ethan Mods re-upping his channel membership. Hat-tricked here. Ethan, thank you again for being such a consistent supporter of the channel. Really appreciate it. In the 2027 season, there will be a lot more guys because if we get a 2C for the forward group, there isn't going to be any roster room when Dach comes back. That is very, very interesting. However, and I get that too, right? Like, knowing that there's going to be more options in a couple of years, you don't necessarily need to rush the rebuild. And, they were talking today about how there's 3 teams that they clearly identified that the Habs could jump next year in the Eastern Conference. I think that's something they specifically said. So, adding someone this summer could be very big. Free agency, I think for Montreal has typically been a bit harder, Jesse, especially when there's so many, places in the States that don't have taxes and you get the US dollar and all this stuff. And Montreal's a higher pressure environment. I think with Montreal's assets, again, I think the big move this summer is not necessarily going to be UFA. It's probably going to be a trade, which is why I think that this summer could be as big as a summer like 2027 where maybe there's more people available because we have the assets to make that kind of trade. It's like, and for lack of a better way to say it, you don't have a choice then if you're going to play in Montreal. So I don't know. That's a great mention though, Ethan, that 2027 could be a big year too. But again, I don't think that the year or the free agency class is going to be a huge dictator into what Kent Hughes or Jeff Gorton will ultimately decide to do.
And the whole thing is that because they don't want to take a step back, they got into the playoffs, but it's kind of this balance right now where they know they might be even younger next year, kind of maybe losing a couple of vet guys. But at the same time, they really know that they want to, at the same time, obviously stay in that position they were of getting into the playoffs. So that is going to be so big for them to kind of balance having that youth movement while at the same time, obviously, like looking to improve. I feel like David Reinbacher is going to help with that. But like they know that this summer is a huge opportunity to improve their team, and they're going to need to be looking at some options, whether they go for some youth or some experience. I feel that the future is kind of now. And at the same time, it's like they don't want to rush the rebuild, but this kind of the spot now too, where it's like kind of made them be a little bit more competitive, a little bit ahead of time. And I think that that'll be reflected in the moves they make this offseason.
It absolutely will be, because the last thing you want, like you say, you don't want to take a step back, but imagine all the guys in the room, the emotional low it would be if you start out slow next season, and you got to fight your way back again. It's something that this team can absolutely do. Like we saw going from last place in the East, second last in the NHL to making the playoffs. So, it's something we can do. And again, like not just the Habs. Remember when the Blues won the Cup? They went from last to winning the Cup. And even this year, the Blues, what's up with that team? I don't know. Hiring Jim Montgomery, they're going like, look, that kind of thing can happen. But I think everyone on the Habs wants to get out to a faster start this year. Slav is one big notable name, but like getting some wins early on, setting that tone early, keeping that level of playoff intensity into the regular season is something that's hard to do, but once you learn how to do it, it can be very impactful. But I want to read through the chats for a minute here. And also, guys, 45 likes away from 100 likes. You know how much we love hitting that 100 like threshold. We got 267 people in here. Come on, you want to hit it. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get through here some chats. Maybe for a 2C, you put Matheson in a trade and you see Reinbacher and Mailloux in the lineup. I think Matheson, Jesse, is one of those names that, like, I think he wants to stick around Montreal. And based on kind of how I read the room with Hughes and Gorton, it's like, and again, based on what we did at the deadline, if a guy's important to the locker room and he's liked by the players, there might be less incentive to move them. However, at the same time, it's like, now I'm stuck on this Matheson thing. At the same time, if an offer is up there for a guy like Matheson, who's an expiring deal, like, he's one of those guys that could fetch a lot more value back for Montreal than he provides at this very minute. Again, other than maybe Evans and Armia, he was our best penalty killer, especially in the second half of the year and the playoffs. Like, Matheson's offense does hurt at times, but like, his defensive game was surprisingly good, especially in the playoffs. I don't know, but are you on board with like maybe shipping out Matheson if a team really asked for him in a 2C trade? Because I feel like a 2C would provide a lot more to this team than maybe Matheson would over the long term.
For sure, I'd be open to trading Matheson as a part of a 2C trade. You have to feel like the trade will be the route that we get the 2Cs. And somebody like a Matheson, who's shown he can get 60-plus points in the NHL as a defenseman, that still has some value. He's played a lot of minutes. And while I would say in, the playoffs, there was maybe some cross-seam kind of passes on the PK I wasn't the biggest fan of from Matheson of kind of allowing there. It's like, that being said, like I have said in the past, like while not being the biggest Matheson fan, like any player on the Habs right now, even guys like Dvorak, even Armia, they all kind of played their part in a lot of ways to getting the Montreal Canadiens ahead of time. Even if we're not big Matheson like supporters here, or like I know in the chat maybe not everybody's the biggest fan, but we do need to take into consideration that this player like did help us get to the playoffs when we really didn't need to expect it. So that's kind of that's the grain of salt that we need to look at. With all this, that being said, like I think I actually feel it would strengthen the team really, where we can get rid of a Matheson while bringing in that 2C that we need. I think that we're starting to get that experience in the back end with Guhle getting a little bit older, with Carrier, that we could maybe balance that while still having maybe a very young decor. You maybe want to get another kind of vet guy to replace Matheson there on that left-hand side. But at the same time, it's like just some passes where he's not keeping in our own offensive zone, like on the power play in the playoffs. Like those were some key moments in this series where it's like a couple of those little things go a different way. I have to be honest, Josh, I was pretty frustrated with this play several times throughout this playoff series here. It'd be interesting to see how management feels. You have to feel like you said though, Kent Hughes is very sweet on Mike Matheson. They have a long relationship. It's gone for a very long time. That being said, I feel like, he does those positive, but for me, I feel like it would help the team, especially in the playoffs. Moving on, like I don't feel like Matheson is that type of playoff performer, and I feel like Jeff Gorton on this management team has definitely identified that moving forward.
And you know what, too? Like again, Matheson being an expiring deal, he'd be due for a contract next year, whether from Montreal or someone else. And look, being a Quebec guy, Montreal guy, he'd probably want to stay. The question is, would Montreal pay him what he would get on the open market? Would they even be willing to pay close to keep him around for like another 4 or 5 year contract? My answer is probably no. And if that's the case, if you're looking that far ahead, a year ahead, as you probably should, trading 1 year of Mike Matheson for potentially more of a 2C seems like a pretty good choice. That's a great question, Ethan. We got stuck on that, but that was great. Simone saying go after a guy like Pulock or Rasmus Anderson so we can move Matheson. I'm down for that as well. A lot of people saying Reinbacher all day. Some talk of Fleury and Xhekaj coming up soon. I mean, he's been great as well. Yep. We got a lot of messages here in the chat. Mark, or if not this summer for a 2C, Matheson goes by the trade deadline next season. Very interesting. But we have a super chat here from Habs Legend. Oh, there we go. Habs Legend fan. $10. Thank you so much. Guys, leave a like on that message. Leave a like on that donation. That's so generous. Thank you so much for the $10. Really appreciate it. Devo gone. Armia back. And I think that's it. No other moves. The press conference made me think that they aren't swinging for the fences and they want to trust the process. So that's interesting. And I mean, that's definitely one way to interpret what they said. Though I would say I disagree to an extent. In terms of our unrestricted free agents, I would say that if we had, that might be the most likely case. I think, Jesse, you and I sort of agree that maybe it's more likely that Armia's also gone. But I think Devo's probably gone, even though he's loved by the group. I mean, him, Slaf, Caufield, and Suzuki had their thing after every game. Everyone loves Dvorak. But in terms of hockey sense, it doesn't make that much sense to keep him around. And then Armia may be gone too. But when it comes to going after some of this offseason, I think a lot of this press conference, they're not going to come out and say, we're going for this amazing player. It's like, we know where we need to get. And again, we'll talk about this in a second. Kent Hughes straight up said, might as well bring that quote up now, Jesse, because I think it's more relevant now than ever. We want to add talent. And I think there's more to that than just bringing back, say, one of your UFAs and letting your young guys develop. There is a lot in that. And I'm not saying Montreal's going to go out and make 4 or 5 massive moves. But Jesse, I do think it's a very interesting take that you raise, Habs Legend fan. Thank you again. But I just think that if that's what happens this offseason, I think a lot of people are going to be rather disappointed. And I honestly think that the management group might even be disappointed in themselves if they don't make at least a move for some kind of solid talent to bolster our forward or decor.
Yeah, and I do see some big moves happening. And it's true that Armia is in the contract talks. Like, it can't happen for some reason. I feel like that new blood we're going to see in Montreal. And I almost kind of want that as well. As much as I've liked a player like Armia, he's had those ups and downs. He finished on a high note. And again, these players that lay their body on the line, that play hurt with so many injuries, they still deserve our respect, even if we don't want to resign them to these teams right now. That being said, is like, you really have to feel like kind of moving forward, like as the stakes go up higher, so too is Kent's willingness to really kind of make some moves that is really on the level with that. That being said, it's like they know like the pressure in Montreal, like they're trying to downplay kind of like the implications of making this playoffs the whole time, right? Because the last thing they want to do with the youngest team in the NHL is tell them, okay, you guys need to be making the playoffs every year. But like, I'm sorry, the gauntlet's been set. They made the playoffs. This is Montreal. We know Habs Nation, like we're going to be expecting them to make it every single year now. There's no way that next year isn't a disappointment if they don't, with adding a guy like
100%.
Demidov, thinking of how, our boy Reinbacher can really affect this team as well. So you have to feel like it's actually amazing how well we did without a lack of a second line. Like our first line doing what they did and then getting some type of support in our second line. Like we're beating one of the very best teams in the NHL. And I think that says a lot early from our rebuild. Like when you're so close and you feel like you just need to do a couple moves and you're getting that much closer, I feel like Kent Hughes, especially Jeff Gorton, is going to be like very motivating. I love the dynamics of them, Josh, how they kind of play off each other. And let me know in the chat if you guys feel the same way, and yourself, Josh, like you have to feel like Kent Hughes, we know his MO. It's all about the long-term play. We know that line, perennial Stanley Cup, contenders. And you got Jeff Gorton, who, he's the bulldog, where it's like, get me off my chain. I want to run free a little bit. I want to start winning now. And I think that's a very interesting dynamic. And you want to keep a little bit of both of those kind of going on as this team is really kind of progressing. Again, I will reiterate what I said earlier. Jeff Gorton said that this is a big opportunity to improve their team this summer. Now, for me, it's like they're not going to come out and say all their plans. But if I'm hearing that, like, that's enough said. If you're saying that this is a big opportunity here, like, we are going to hold you to that, because we know that this team needs a big time move to really start getting at that level that we're at right now.
Yeah, like, I think something big is going to happen. It's just like, it might not be super quick. It might not be till later. Like, one thing, like, too, as much as I do think big moves are coming, one big theme from this press conference was, we're not going to rush into things, which is honestly the best thing you can hear. It's not the best thing for making news videos. It's not the best thing to immediately give you that dopamine hit as a fan. But even when Kent Hughes was questioned about Lane Hutson's contract extension, he was like, hey, like, is that like an urgent thing, or is that a priority, is what they said. And he was just like, no, I mean, it's not a priority. And that's such a weird thought, because I think for almost any other organization in the league, they'd say, yeah, that's a priority to keep this guy around. And Kent is just like, nah, I mean, like, look, I heard Lane wants to talk about it. We'll sit down with his agents. We'll call him up. But he's like, look, Cole Caufield, it went right until, like the end of the extension window. Slaf and Guhle were done early. But like, listen, we just want to do what's best for Lane. And I think that kind of psychology, that mentality works very well with free agents or trades as well. It's like, and it's why we didn't make a bunch of moves at the deadline. When asked about, hey, do you guys regret any moves at the deadline? Gorton was pretty like dead on, saying like, no, we don't have any regrets with what we did. Trusted the guys. They did what they needed to do, and it's fine. And you look towards the future, can't help but feel something big is coming as well. But we got another little shot in chat here from Simone Dejaan, re-upping the channel membership, Rocket Recharger. Simone, thank you so much, as always, for being such an incredible supporter. It's great to have you at another Monday stream. Hopefully Calgary doesn't strike gold in the lottery. Picking at 16 versus 30-ish is a big difference. And you know what, Jesse, before we get into the offer sheets, why don't we entertain this for a bit? Because I think this transitions very well. Thank you again, Simone, for being a long-term member. That's the 8-month membership there for you. Draft lottery tonight, I think in about 15 minutes. I could be wrong. They're televising the whole thing. It's very soon. And the only thing that Montreal has in this is Calgary's first-round pick. Now, the problem is, right now, Montreal's slotted to draft 16th with Calgary's pick and 17th with our own. 17th is outside the lottery, 16th is in it, but 16th can only move up as high as number 6. The problem is, if Calgary's pick does win a lottery and moves up to number 6, we lose that pick, and we all of a sudden have to pick a Florida's pick, which is going to be way later. Look, Jesse, I know that is a big difference. Simone was right. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. We all will, because honestly, like, when it comes to the draft, picking 16 and 17, I know we have so many young players now, but there's so much versatility with not only the type of player you can pick, who you can pick, what you could trade up in the draft, you could trade down in the draft, or trade it for another player. honestly, having 16 and 17, I think is a much more powerful tool than almost anyone else realizes.
And this is going to be so important for our 2C pickup this summer. You have to feel like one of our first round, not both of them, are going to be a part of that deal there. Again, only 0.5% to 1% chance of the Flames moving up. So it's looking like we're going to have some very good picks once again. You know, what a difference that 1 year makes though, really, Josh, right? Where we're talking about finishing 5th overall, getting that number 5 spot this time last year, to now just the rewards keep coming in just in a different way by some great work from Kent Hughes here. So yeah, anyway, really excited. You have to feel like, would Kent Hughes kind of package them to kind of both move up? Or I feel it more likely though, Josh, that he's going to either kind of trade one of those, if not both, to get more of an impact player that we need more now, especially with having making the playoffs. I think that maybe reaffirms that type of path that much more. Be very interested to see how this all plays out very soon.
I agree, and I think there's no other team that has 2 picks before us. Like, we're the first team that has 2 picks. So, like, unless another team in the top 15 decides to trade for another pick in the top 15, it's like, that's so valuable because a lot of teams, like, outside the top 4 or 5 guys a lot of the time, teams start to go off the board per se pretty quick. Like it's not crazy to see the 6th overall draft pick be someone that most mocks had at 11 or 12, right? So like teams have their guys, right? We saw like Sam Dickinson and Z Boyum, guys that Jesse, we were even talking about, like, look, if Ivan Demidov's gone at number 5, we started even throwing their names out at around number 5. Like there was reasonable guys. And those guys slipped to 11 and 12. Like, you never know who's going to be available. Don't forget Caufield, Guhle, drafted right around that zone. Even an Alex Newhook. Yeah, while he's not a superstar, still a very solid impact player in the NHL. So, very, very important to keep those picks. And even if we don't, even if we just get Florida's by some miracle of the lottery ball odds, not even that bad. So, really good stuff. Ethan sends in another super chat. Marner, McTavish, Demidov. Imagine that second line. $2. Thank you so much, Ethan. I mean, look, we haven't really talked about Mitchell Marner in a little bit. Look, he's in a playoff series. They play in about an hour, I think. McTavish I'm cool with. We'll talk about him in just a second, I think, Jesse. I don't know if I have too much to say on the Marner front other than my opinion hasn't really changed on him in that he's an incredibly skilled player. Him and Demidov on the same line could probably each put up 90 points, but I just don't want him on my playoff roster. He's having a little bit of a better playoffs this year. Still doesn't look great. Leafs fans still not happy with him. I don't know. Before we maybe get to McTavish in the offer sheets, do you have any thoughts on Mitch Marner?
It's interesting that you bring up this player, Ethan, because some reporters have actually kind of inferred from this press conference that Jeff Gorton was referring to a Mitch Marner because he was saying that there's certain players when you're looking for that 2C, there's also impact players that you can get that are not centermen, that there's 100-point wingers that are driving lines in the NHL. And a lot of people are thinking that he's referring to Mitch Marner because that's the only 100-point winger that's going to be available in for free agency. That being said, I think that's maybe reading a little bit too much to it, maybe considering that we're most likely to go for a trade route to get either a 2C or an impact player. So who's kind of available in free agency wouldn't be as much as a relevant conversation. That being said, it's got some people on social media kind of up in arms. All right, was he referring to Mitch Marner in some type of way there? And you can get slightly what they're talking about. But again, when you look at the more likely trade route, probably not who he was really kind of referring to here. That being said, it was just an interesting take. And we're obviously going to get into that, kind of fairly soon there. But it's when we're looking to improve this team, they're obviously always looking outside the box. I will say personally, Josh, kind of scared me a little bit. I want to feel like I have a 2C. Having another guy, 100-point. I know that you have your thoughts on that too, which by the way, I absolutely love. But I want to get that 2C that I feel can get points as well, and I don't want to rely on those wins. Having a good center is important, right? I don't know if it's PTSD after Guhle and other company, Xhekaj and what have you there, but I don't know. I don't feel like he's talking about Mitch Marner here. I feel like they're still going for the 2C. I'm not too rattled. I'm trying not to get too rattled by the comments.
Yeah, and look, I know Marner's name was brought up a lot, but there's another winger that was traded twice this year that's a 100-point winger, and that's Mikko Rantanen. I think, again, there's guys, and again, not that Montreal could get him, but again, the guys like that, sometimes they become available, right? There are 100-point wingers that are big, impactful players. My gosh, what a crazy Game 7 that was. Mikko Rantanen, 11 points in 3 games to eliminate the Avalanche. Crazy. But that was one thing. But yeah, I mean, my take on this, when Gorton said that, I was just like, listen, when he's talking about 100-point wingers that can drive a line, my mind immediately went to our boy Ivan. Like, straight up. I mean, Jesse, we talked about it. I think this guy could legit be a 100-point player in the league. Again, maybe that's getting ahead of myself. I don't think so. I think the skill level absolutely is there. But you know what you need for him to do that? You need other good players on his line. He can't get 100 points if the other two guys are only getting 50 each. Not if he's playing on the second line. So there's going to have to be a 2C regardless. But I get what he's saying. It's a very fun thought experiment nonetheless. And Simone Dejaan coming in now with another $5 donation. Thank you so much, Simone. Above all else, the 2C needs to be a lefty. I don't ever want to see a Dvorak type of player taking an important faceoff because he's a lefty. So I don't want to see, I get you what you're saying. That's the thing. Like, on the left side, who was our best faceoff guy? It was Dvorak by an absolute country mile because Alex Newhook is not very good at faceoffs. He was just a bit above 40% this year, which was an improvement. But yeah, he's absolutely right. Like, the left side there, if you want a lefty taking a faceoff, now to be fair, Dvorak was like 56%. But how many times, Jesse, did we see in overtime? It's like Dvorak, Suzuki, and Hudson. And then it's like you pray you win the draw, and then Dvorak skates to the bench as fast as he can so Caufield can come out. Having an actual 2C that can start overtimes could be nice, right? Like this kind of thing. Now, again, maybe it could just be Suzuki if he continues to improve his faceoffs. That's another option. But like defensive zone faceoffs a lot of the time. Dvorak's a good defensive player, so he'll get a lot of those defensive zone starts, but an extraordinary amount of them when he's at an advantage on the faceoff dot. I think that's actually a very good point, Simo. Jesse, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the deciding factor, but I definitely think that if you're looking at a 2C, that does have to be a consideration. Or maybe you get another solid left-hand faceoff guy to fill that void as well. Or you just get Bo Horvat, who fits both of those criteria very well.
Oh, that's exactly it. Kent Hughes, he's going to be aiming high when it comes to this. The most important factor, for sure, that like it's not lost on them in terms of what they need. For sure, the most important is going to be that point production, but also, if they can get that, it's going to be interesting to see if they go with the vet or if they go with a younger player that you can kind of build with. And for sure, there's kind of two sides to each of that. It's like a vet is easier to get than a younger team, than a younger guy, kind of like a Mason McTavish. It's easier to get even a Bo Horvat, right? Than that. We know the contracts and everything else there. That being said, it's like, with a younger player, you don't have that experience, but that opportunity to kind of grow together as a team. Obviously, with contracts, it's like you're obviously a little bit easier now, but, obviously you're probably getting set into something long-term very quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see where it plays out. They'll need to go with the flow a little bit in terms of what's available. For sure, I think they have, like, their ideal would be kind of a Mason McTavish. They'll kind of start there and they'll kind of go down the pecking order from there. But, I mean, we know how good Kent Hughes is. With the ammunition he has, he might not need to kind of go too far down that list to find his man.
Absolutely. And you know what? Ethan coming in again with the $5 super chat. Thank you again, Ethan. I believe Horvat's a lefty, one of the best faceoff winners in the league. I think we got ahead of you there. There you go. Bo Horvat was like 56 or 57% this year, consistently right around that 55% mark, consistently one of the best in the league. And don't forget how good, do I have his stats here? How good he was with JT Miller in Vancouver, 31 goals in 49 games. This guy can be a 30 to 40 goal scorer if you got the right wingers around him. So very interesting name. So thank you again for the donation, Ethan. Again, Bo Horvat's a name that we're all talking about. But we want to talk about something Jeff Gorton said, and this will be something that I think I want to hear from a lot of the fans here, because Jeff Gorton today said offer sheets. When talking about offer sheets, he said there's certainly an option. So this kind of opened a lot of doors. Now, Gorton was questioned about this because he also went on to say, like, look, I think offer sheets are going to become more common. And he's questioning, hey, why do you think they're going to be more common? He said, well, you see them work somewhere, and people are probably just going to start to copy it and do the same thing. That's not verbatim, but that's what he implied. And when you see what happened with Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway in St. Louis poaching them away from Edmonton, this just opens the door for Montreal. Now, this is a huge thing as well, because there are a lot of good restricted free agents. This is the top 10 in terms of restricted free agents that don't have contract extensions yet in terms of points in the 2024-25 season. So you got a guy like JJ Peterka. Yes, there's some guys here that are listed as position centers, but don't actually play it. Like Peterka's a winger. He's listed as a center, but he doesn't take faceoffs. Still, 68 points, but you go down the list. Marco Rossi. There is a ton of drama about him in Minnesota. Again, the issue is he's 5'9", played fourth line in the playoffs. Sure. You have guys like Mason McTavish, Jesse. I mean, he's a guy we want to talk about. There's more here. You can feel free to pause, take a look. I mean, look, Jack Quinn, Alex Laferriere, who has been amazing for LA, 19 goals, 42 points. Again, he's a winger. Not that many centers. I think Mason McTavish is the guy here, Jesse, but the fact that there's so many good RFAs and Gorton just opening this door, now it's just something else. I was like, nah, maybe they won't do an offer sheet. Now I'm starting to convince myself that maybe this is like a real possibility here.
Well, he said that it's starting to become a trend in the NHL, and a lot of teams are going to study it. For whatever reason, I kind of got more the feeling that he was kind of referring to other teams. That could totally be gamemanship, though, because we've seen teams at totally different parts of their kind of rebuild or growth cycle, however you want to refer it, kind of do offer sheets. It's not just now for a team where you feel like they're kind of setting vets and kind of some offer sheet type of move to take them over top. Like younger teams, older teams, they're all kind of looking to do it, and there has been a history of them doing it, which will kind of continue. That being said, I feel like the Montreal Canadiens, they kind of know what they need to do. I don't see them going this route to really get what they need. I think for that 2C, probably going for a trade. They might kind of, look to add. Again, though, there are some interesting right-handed D, which is, Dobson's on this list,
yes, he is.
which is definitely interesting there. They're going to look at it more. I don't know. Maybe it's just that the offer sheets are still a little bit new that I'm hesitant on them, but it'll be interesting to see how this is utilized, not just by Hughes this summer, really, but by all the GMs in the NHL. I mean, you have to note Gabe Vilardi on that list.
Yeah.
He's listed as a center. He's playing right wing, first line for the Jets right now. But, I mean, 27 goals, 61 points, obviously an amazing young player there. It'll be interesting. I don't feel like, Jeff Gordon's going to be going right for the offer sheet yet. I feel like they want to get maybe the team a little bit more established first. But that being said, it's like, even though there is some term kind of involved in the offer sheets, we've seen where it can kind of make sense. Obviously, the Blues are kind of the talk of the town of being able to make this happen so well, and for it to still make sense. That being said, like just with the contracts we kind of have already, I feel like they're going to be very kind of specific about it, but it'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting. And again, like offer sheets is something that it doesn't endear you too much to another team when you do that. And again, like Montreal has traded for the rights of restricted free agents before and then signed them, right? I mean, just look at Kirby Dach. He's a guy we just talked about. And so I think that might be, you're right, the more likely plan. And again, with a guy like Mason McTavish, again, we don't even know if he's actually really available. That's kind of the problem here because, we know Anaheim's they've been looking to shop Trevor Zegras for a while. They have so many young guys. McTavish is one of those guys that feels like a bit of the odd man out, and he could absolutely be on the move. And he's a restricted free agent, so trading for his rights might be easier. But again, if you were to try and offer sheet him, you would owe extra draft picks. Maybe you could find something that works. But, Jesse, when Jeff Gorton said this, I couldn't help but wonder, like, is there anyone in Montreal that might get offer sheeted? I don't think so, because I think, like, at the end of the day, like, if anyone was to offer sheet someone like a Jaden Struble or an Emil Heineman, I think those are really the two guys that would be the most likely. I think it would just be something that Montreal matches, but this is kind of an off-the-cuff question I just thought of. Like, if another team threw Jaden Struble, like, a few years at, like, $3.5 million per, is that something we'd even match? I mean, look, this is just a crazy hypothetical that absolutely serves no basis in reality, but it wouldn't surprise me to see another team value Struble a lot and just be like, hey, let's see if they'll pay him, Like, I'm just saying, maybe they're thinking about some teams looking at Montreal, not just for this year, but for upcoming years as well. Maybe that's why they want to get these extensions done as soon as they can.
Yeah, well, you got to feel like Kent is definitely going to have his number in mind. And yeah, that's it. Like GMs are going to be much more aware of this summer in terms of like getting ahead of this. They've seen what it did last year for the Blues. So that's why I'm a little bit reluctant to that idea. Yeah. I feel like any team that really has some valuable young players, they are not going to make that mistake again. It's really only in the case of certain teams where they kind of get handcuffed into that type of situation. But obviously with it becoming that much more, popular, teams are going to be looking to pre-handle it. That being said, it's an option. And we know how clever Kent Hughes is, a former player agent, when it comes to numbers, making these deals happen. He is going to be looking at all possibilities to really improve this team. And it's just another option for them.
So many options. And I think that's the big theme here. Like, we have so many options and they're going to take it the way they need to take it. And one other big theme from this, before I get to a couple final super chats here, what I really liked was the way that they phrased a lot of questions. I like that they didn't make it seem like getting a 2C was urgent. As Simone Dejaan super chat here, his quote from Jeff Gorton, really? Because someone was like, hey, hey, Jeff, people are saying you need a 2C. And he's like, huh, really? Where'd you hear that? Like, he's great at deadpan. But, like, when we're talking about this, Gorton and Hughes, they didn't make it seem like it was absolutely urgent, right? They kind of played it down like, yeah, but there's other ways to do this. And I think that was not only, like, truth in it as well. I think there's gamesmanship in there. And I think there's gamesmanship in making it known that, like, listen, we are Montreal. We're not desperate to trade for your 2C. I don't want you to go think that we're going to pay super high top dollar more than anyone else for this, even though we can probably afford to. I think playing it down was a really nice thing that they did. Like, even I left thinking, it's like you said earlier, it's like we were kind of like, when Gorton said that, I was like, okay, that's a weird answer with the 100-point winger thing. But part of me is like, but like, you know what?
Great insight.
This might have just been like, this might have just been like, oh, like, gamesmanship. And that's what I like about this too. So anyway, that was really fun. And one final super chat here from Ethan Mods. Matthew Nyes would be nice. I mean, I don't know. Is this the stream that's turning into just poach the Leafs players? Thank you, Ethan. I don't know, Jesse. I think Matthew Nyes is a phenomenal player. I would not want to offer sheet the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not for him, because for anything, like, they're going to sign him to a Slaf type deal. Not in the cards. Look, if you copied him from Toronto and you pasted him on Montreal, you get a slightly worse Juraj Slafkovsky. Again, he had more goals points this year, whatever. But Slav's potential, I think, is much higher. I don't know. I think Nyes is an interesting name, Jesse, but not much more than that. Another big guy, though. Like, not saying I wouldn't want big guys, because Byfield's another name that I like. But anyway, I digress. What do you think?
I mean, the Montreal Canadiens definitely want to improve this team. They're going to be looking at all options, but like, culture and optics are a big part of this, and you just have to feel like we try to say and separate ourselves like, oh, it wouldn't matter if we got a player from the Leafs. It would matter. It would matter a lot. Obviously it matters what Matthew Nyes, what Mitch Mner does for the rest of this playoff, and to kind of determine that narrative for this summer and any sort of kind of crazy talk that would kind of happen from there. But I mean, with Matthew Nyes and Mitch Mner, like, it seems like very much at least one of them is going to be heading out of town. It looks like they might side with keeping Matthew Nyes, and then Mitch Mner might kind of be that odd man out. Like, we know that he wants to get paid. I just I don't want to make this about Mitch Mner again. I don't know how much he really kind of like, it fits the culture of this team. He's almost the antithesis of really this locker room and like what's important, like getting numbers under the cap and being team friendly. And he's a great player, and I love watching him on the power play. Just some of his comments have really kind of put a bad taste in my mouth again when we're talking about like that culture that we have in Montreal. I feel like the Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton, like they hold that as like sacrosanct, like the culture that the Montreal Canadiens have right now. And whether it's kind of getting a player for some means that wouldn't feel right or just kind of some bad press to go with it, I feel like they'll get their man and they'll make it seem like highway robbery, right? Where it's like, obviously having their cake and really eating it too.
It's going to be so weird to watch this offseason because, like you said, man, like the Toronto situation is going to be crazy to watch. I think just as a neutral NHL fan for a lot of teams that I'm just kind of like indifferent about, there's so many interesting narratives going around this offseason. I mean, a team I do care about, obviously Montreal, another team, Minnesota. That place is crazy right now. The buyout money's there. But now Kaprizov, apparently they might offer Kaprizov $15.5 million a year for his extension, which is just crazy again. But then you're talking Marner might get $14 million from another team. Will he stay in Toronto for that price? I don't know. What do you sign Nyes to? Do you bring him in, or the Leafs going to say you got to be under like $8 million or like anyway? But then with Montreal itself, like big 2C talk, free agents. I mean, the guy like Sam Bennett keeps getting brought up, a very good two-way guy, or Selke finalist this year, which like again, like that's very valuable. There's so many different ways this could go, but I'm so excited to talk about all this with you. We got Malkin in the chat. A lot of people saying just wait for Xhekaj. Someone saying Jonathan Daves. Don't know about that one. That might be I mean, who knows what's going on? He's on his own journey. And maybe the next stop is Montreal. Probably not. But yeah, I think that's probably going to do it. Jesse, you got any final thoughts before we end this one off? Today was a big day for the future of the Montreal Canadiens, just like every single day is at this point.
We're getting cooking because every single day matters for Kent Hughes. Yeah. They know that this offseason is going to come really quick, and they really want to make sure that they're starting off strong for the season. So really kind of all this work that they can do, just have their prep work when it gets ready for free agency, for when trades, we're able to make those moves again. Like, Jeff, they're going to have their plan. They're going to be hitting the ground running, really to hit the bases, because this team, we got a couple right pieces. We get some young guys, a full season of Ivan Demidov, Reinbacher, our young core kind of growing. We're excited, but it becomes that much more exciting very, very quickly.
Very much so. I can't wait. One final chat from a channel member, Marco, or a trade for Horvat and Mathieu Olivier to play with Demira. Some very interesting thoughts going in here. There's so many different ways. Like, I love that suggestion. It's very interesting, and there's going to be so many more coming out this offseason. And you know that we're going to be here every single day for you, covering it all. That'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. Let us know what you think about these offseason plans, what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton had to say, because I think there's a lot bigger things to come. I'm Josh Goss, my co-host Jesse Poirier. Thank you all for tuning in another Monday night. We'll catch you in the next one.